I was looking forward to reconnecting with family after years apart. The warmth, the memories, the chance to heal old wounds. Then I checked my bank account. Every penny gone. When confronted, my brother-in-law Brian just sneered at me from across the living room. "We needed it more than you." I trembled, reaching for my travel bag, voice steady despite my rage. "Then you will not mind what comes next." As they laughed nervously, a thunderous knock rattled the front door. It swung open and everyone froze. "Where are you watching from? Like and subscribe if you have ever been betrayed by family, and let me know what you would do in my situation. I never thought I would find myself in such a position with my own family. My name is Blake, a 35-year-old software engineer living alone in Seattle. 3 years ago, I lost my wife Sarah to breast cancer. The pain of watching her slowly fade away changed me forever. We had built our life in Seattle, far from my hometown in Maine, focusing on our careers and our relationship. We always said we would start a family someday, but someday never came. After Sarah died, I threw myself into work. Coding became my escape, my therapy, my way of avoiding the empty apartment we once shared. My team at the tech startup understood my grief and gave me space to process it in my own way. Gradually, I established a new normal, not happy exactly, but functional. I made enough money to live comfortably and had even started putting away substantial savings for whatever future I might build. My relationship with my family back in Maine had grown distant over the years. My parents never understood my decision to move across the country for my career. They wanted me to take over the family hardware store, follow the path they had planned. My younger sister, Amanda, had been the only one who supported my choices, who called regularly to check in, who seemed to genuinely care about my life in Seattle. So when Amanda called to invite me to a family reunion at our parents' house, I was surprised but cautiously optimistic. It had been 5 years since I had seen any of them in person. 5 years of obligatory holiday phone calls and occasional text messages. "I need you there," Blake Amanda had said. "Everyone has changed. They miss you. The kids keep asking about their Uncle Blake." I had never met her children in person. 8-year-old Lily and 6-year-old Thomas only knew me through video calls. The thought of finally meeting my niece and nephew in person was what ultimately convinced me to go. I bought expensive gifts for the kids, a telescope for Lily, who had shown interest in astronomy, and a complex Lego set for Thomas, who Amanda said loved building things. I even got a nice bottle of scotch for my father, and a handcrafted jewelry box for my mother. I wanted them to know I was doing well, that I had become successful, despite choosing a different path. The flight from Seattle to Portland, Maine, was long, giving me plenty of time to imagine how this reunion might go. Would there be awkward silences, old arguments resurfacing, or maybe, just maybe, a chance to heal old wounds and rebuild connections? I rented a car at the airport for the drive to our small coastal hometown, windows down to breathe in the summer town. Familiar scent of salt air and pine trees. Something inside me began to feel hopeful, like I was not just returning to a place but to a part of myself I had left behind. When I pulled into my parents' driveway, Amanda was the first one out the door, running to greet me with the same enthusiastic hug she had given me since childhood. My mother followed her eyes, filling with tears as she pulled me close. Even my father, a man of few words and fewer displays of emotion, clapped me firmly on the shoulder in a gesture I recognized as his version of affection. Brian, Amanda's husband of 10 years, stood back a bit, offering a stiff handshake when I approached. I had only met him twice before, at their wedding and at Sarah's funeral. He had always seemed distant, but I chalked it up to natural awkwardness between in-laws who barely knew each other. The real magic moment came when Lily and Thomas cautiously approached, urged forward by their mother. I knelt down to their level, presenting their gifts. The way their eyes lit up, the way Thomas immediately wrapped his arms around my neck, the way Lily solemnly informed me that she was going to be an astronaut someday, all of it made something inside me crack open. These were my family, my blood. I had been missing this connection without even realizing how much I needed it. That first afternoon was filled with catching up. My parents showed me around the house, pointing out renovations and changes. Amanda shared stories about the kids pulling out photo albums to show me all I had missed. For those few hours, it felt like I had found my way back to something precious I had lost. I went to bed that night feeling more content than I had in years, wondering why I had stayed away so long. The first hint that something was off came during dinner on that first night. We were all seated around my mother's dining table enjoying her famous pot roast when Brian started asking questions about my job. "So you work for some big tech company out west?" he asked, his fork poised midair. "A startup, actually," I replied. "We are doing well, though. Just secured another round of funding. Must pay pretty good," Brian pressed. "Those Seattle apartments cost a fortune, right?" I nodded, feeling slightly uncomfortable with the direct question about money. "It is expensive, but I do all right." Brian glanced at Amanda before continuing. "What kind of car do you drive again?" My father interrupted then. "Come on now. Let the boy eat. Blake, tell us about that hiking trip you posted pictures of last month." I gratefully shifted to talking about my weekend excursions to the mountains. But I noticed Brian seemed uninterested, checking his phone under the table. Later, when I went to use the bathroom, I returned to find my jacket slightly moved from where I had hung it. My phone was in the pocket, and something about its position felt different. I brushed it off as paranoia, but a small alarm bell had begun ringing in the back of my mind. That night, passing the kitchen to get a glass of water, I overheard Brian and Amanda arguing in hushed tones. "You promised we would figure something out," Amanda whispered fiercely. "I am trying," Brian hissed back. "What do you want me to do?" "Pull money out of thin air." I retreated silently, not wanting to eavesdrop, but the tension in their voices stayed with me. The next morning at breakfast, I noticed Amanda's reddened eyes and the way she avoided looking at her husband. While helping my mother with the dishes, I spotted a stack of mail on the counter. Bills with past due stamps were partially hidden beneath a cookbook. My mother quickly moved to tuck them away when she saw me looking. "Blake, why do not you take the kids outside? Show them how to use that telescope while the sun is still up." Looking around the house with new awareness, I began noticing signs I had missed before. The furniture was worn with carefully placed throws covering the worst spots. The refrigerator made a concerning grinding noise. The bathroom faucet leaked steadily. These were not just normal signs of aging in a house, but indications of repairs postponed due to lack of funds. During a moment alone with Amanda, in the garden while the kids played with their grandfather, I gently broached the subject. "Everything okay with you guys? Financially, I mean." Her smile froze. "Of course, why would you ask that?" "No reason," I backpedaled. "Just if you ever needed help with anything." "We are fine, Blake." She cut me off firmly. "Really good, actually. Brian just got a promotion." The lie hung between us, as obvious as the patched hole in the living room ceiling. I did not push further. Amanda had always been proud, unwilling to admit when she was struggling. But as the day wore on, I could not shake the feeling that something was very wrong in my sister's household. That night, I called my bank from the privacy of my rental car, checking my accounts. Everything was in order. My savings were untouched. My credit cards showed no unusual activity. I breathed a sigh of relief, telling myself I was being paranoid. These were my family, after all. Whatever financial troubles they might be having, they would never resort to stealing from me. I decided then that I would find a way to help them before I left, something that would preserve their dignity while easing their burden. I just needed to figure out how to offer without making Amanda feel like a charity case. The next morning, I woke earlier than usual, still on Seattle time. Heading to the bathroom, I froze in the hallway as I saw Brian quietly emerging from the guest room where I was staying. In his hand was my wallet. Our eyes met, and he quickly stuffed something in his pocket. "I was just looking for some aspirin," he mumbled. "Thought you might have some." "There is some in the medicine cabinet," I replied evenly, watching as he hurried past me down the stairs. My heart pounding, I returned to my room and checked my belongings. My wallet appeared undisturbed, cards still in place. My phone was where I had left it, charging on the nightstand. But the sense of violation was overwhelming. Later that morning, while everyone was occupied with breakfast preparations, I slipped outside to make a phone call to my bank. No unusual transactions had been recorded. My credit cards showed no activity. Maybe I had misjudged Brian. Maybe he really had been looking for aspirin. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it grew throughout the day. During a family trip to the local beach, I noticed Brian constantly checking his phone, stepping away for hushed conversations. At one point, I overheard him telling someone, "I will have it by tomorrow, I swear." While everyone was busy building sandcastles with the kids, I casually asked my father about Amanda and Brian's situation. Dad frowned, digging his toes into the sand. "They have had some rough patches. The economy hit Brian's construction business hard. Has he found other work?" "He is doing odd jobs." My father's expression grew guarded. "You know how it is. Pride makes it hard to talk about these things." That evening, while looking for extra towels in the hallway closet, I accidentally knocked over a stack of papers on a shelf. As I picked them up, my blood ran cold. It was a foreclosure notice from the bank addressed to Amanda, and Brian dated just 2 weeks earlier. The pieces began falling into place. The tense whispers, the worn furniture, the unpaid bills, Brian's unusual interest in my finances. They were not just struggling, they were drowning. I made a decision then. The next morning, while everyone was busy preparing for a family barbecue, I drove to the nearest bank branch in town. I withdrew $15,000 in cash, nearly emptying my checking account, but leaving my savings untouched. It was enough, I hoped, to help them catch up on their mortgage and buy some breathing room until Brian could find steady work. I placed the cash in an envelope and hid it in my travel bag, planning to give it to Amanda privately before I left in 2 days. It would be a gift, not a loan. No strings attached. That night, as we all sat around the fire pit in the backyard, my phone rang. It was my team lead from Seattle calling with an emergency. A major bug had been discovered in our latest release, and as the senior developer, I was needed back as soon as possible. "I have to head back tomorrow," I announced after ending the call. Everyone protested, especially the kids, but it could not be helped. As I packed that night, I felt a mix of disappointment and relief. I had reconnected with my family in ways I had not thought possible, but the tension with Brian had cast a shadow over the visit. At least I would be able to help Amanda before I left, even if she never knew the foreclosure notice had prompted my generosity. The next morning brought the moment that would change everything. While finishing my packing, I reached for my wallet to check if I had enough cash for airport expenses. My debit card was missing. I searched through all my belongings, thinking I had misplaced it, but it was nowhere to be found. With growing alarm, I opened my banking app on my phone. What I saw made my stomach drop. My checking account balance $0. My savings account completely emptied. Multiple large withdrawals and transfers had been made over the past 2 days, systematically draining every cent I had. $68,000. Gone. My hands shook as I scrolled through the transaction history. ATM withdrawals at the maximum daily limit. Wire transfers to accounts I did not recognize. Even my credit cards showed cash advances. I felt sick, violated, betrayed. There was only one person who could have done this. I found everyone in the living room preparing for a final family breakfast before my departure. My face must have shown my distress, because everyone fell silent when I entered. "Someone stole my money," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, despite the rage building inside me. "All of it." "What?" my mother gasped. How I showed them my phone screen, the banking app, displaying my empty accounts. Every transaction within the last 48 hours. Brian must have gotten my card and PIN somehow. I continued looking directly at him. Maybe when he was in my room yesterday morning looking for aspirin. Brian's face reddened. "That is ridiculous. I did not take anything from you." Amanda stood beside her husband, hand on his arm. "Blake, are you sure it was not some kind of bank error or identity theft?" "The transfers went to an account under the name B. Wilson." I kept my eyes locked on Brian's. "Your full name is Brian Wilson, is not it?" My father stepped between us. "Now hold on, Blake. That is a serious accusation." I tapped my phone, pulling up another screen. "Here are the security camera screenshots the bank just sent me. I had called them while packing. An image clearly showed Brian at an ATM, my card in hand. The room fell silent. Amanda stared at the photo, then at her husband, her face crumpling in disbelief. Brian, tell me you did not. Brian's posture changed then from defensive to defiant. Fine. I took it. We are about to lose the house. They were going to take everything in 3 days. So you stole from me. I could barely contain my anger. My own brother-in-law, you have plenty, Brian spat. Living in your fancy apartment, driving your nice car while we can barely feed the kids some months. You would never have missed it. I would have helped you if you had asked, I shouted. In fact, I was going to give you money today. Amanda began to sob, sinking onto the couch. Mom put her arms around her while Dad stood frozen, looking decades older suddenly. Brian laughed bitterly. Right. The golden boy swoops in to save the day. We do not want your charity. It is not charity. It is family, I responded. But what you did this is a crime. Go ahead, call the cops, Brian challenged. They will understand why I did it. Family takes care of family. Is that what you call this? I gestured to my phone. Stealing every cent I have. We needed it more than you. He snorted, a look of contempt twisting his features. Something inside me snapped, then. The grief of losing Sarah, the loneliness of the past 3 years, the hope I had felt reconnecting with my family, all of it crystallized into a cold, hard resolve. Trembling with rage, I reached for my travel bag and said, Then you will not mind what comes next. Brian and my father exchanged glances, both chuckling nervously at what they perceived as an empty threat from someone they had always seen as the soft, cerebral brother who had run away to the West Coast. Just as Brian opened his mouth to say something else, a loud bang shook the house. The front door flew open with such force that a picture fell from the wall, and there in the doorway stood Jake Mitchell, sheriff's deputy, and my old high school friend. Jake's entrance silenced the room. In his uniform badge gleaming, he looked exactly like what he was. The law arrived to restore order. Deputy Mitchell, my father stammered. What brings you here? Jake nodded at me. Blake called me last night, said he might need some assistance this morning. I had indeed called Jake after discovering the foreclosure notice, a precaution that now seemed prescient. After finding my accounts emptied, I had texted him the details while packing. Brian's face had gone from smug to panicked in seconds. He took a step toward the back door. This is a family matter. You have no right to be here. Theft and fraud are police matters, Mr. Wilson. Jake replied calmly. Blake has provided evidence that you illegally accessed his accounts and stole a substantial amount of money. You cannot prove anything, Brian said, but his voice had lost its confidence. I held up my phone. Actually, I can. After I noticed my card missing, I checked my accounts and immediately reported it to both the bank and Deputy Mitchell here. The bank has already frozen all the transfers you initiated. They have camera footage from every ATM you visited. But more importantly, I tapped my phone again, and Brian's voice filled the room. I took it. We are about to lose the house. Voice recording, I explained. Started it right before I came downstairs. Plus, most banking apps track the device used to access accounts. Yours will show up in their logs, Brian. Brian lunged toward the back door, but Jake moved with surprising speed for his build, blocking the exit. Brian Wilson, you are under arrest for theft, fraud, and unauthorized access to financial accounts, Jake recited, pulling handcuffs from his belt. As Jake read Brian his rights, Amanda collapsed into tears again. My parents stood, shocked. My father's face, ashen, my mother covering her mouth with her hand. You cannot do this, Amanda cried, looking at me. He is my husband, the father of my children, the father who was willing to steal from your brother, I replied, my voice softening. The husband who has been lying to you about how bad things really are. I approached my sister and sat beside her on the couch. I reached into my travel bag and pulled out the envelope. I withdrew $15,000 yesterday to give to you, I explained, placing it in her hands. I saw the foreclosure notice accidentally. I was going to help without making a big deal of it. That is what family does, Amanda. They help each other openly, honestly, not like this. Amanda stared at the envelope, then at Brian as Jake led him toward the front door. Why did not you just tell me how bad it was? She asked him, her voice breaking. Why did not you let me ask Blake for help? Brian looked back, defiance replaced by shame. Because I was supposed to provide for you. Not him, not your rich brother who left us all behind. As Jake led Brian outside to the patrol car, I sat with my devastated sister, our parents hovering uncertainly nearby. I never left you behind, Amanda, I said softly. I just built a different life. And now, I want to help you rebuild yours. But what about all the money he took, Mom asked. Your savings. The bank will reverse most of the transfers, I explained. I will get most of it back. And what I do not. I looked at the kids who had mercifully been playing upstairs during this whole ordeal. Well, consider it the price of learning who really has your back. 6 months have passed since that terrible morning. The family reunion that ended with handcuffs and heartbreak has led to unexpected new beginnings. Brian pled guilty to reduced charges. With my reluctant agreement as the victim, he received a sentence of 18 months with possibility of parole after 6. The court ordered restitution for the small amount of money that could not be recovered by the bank. Amanda filed for divorce while Brian was awaiting sentencing. It was a decision she made on her own, though I supported her through the process. The foreclosure on their house proceeded, but by then Amanda and the kids were no longer living there. They moved to Seattle into a small apartment I helped secure just 15 minutes from my place. Amanda found a job as an administrative assistant at a medical office, putting her organizational skills to good use. Lily and Thomas adjusted to their new school with the resilience only children possess. On weekends, they often stay with me, filling my once empty apartment with noise and life. Our parents visited last month, their first trip to Seattle. Seeing them explore my world, meeting my friends, understanding the life I built here, it finally bridged the gap that had existed between us for so long. My father even admitted that leaving Maine had clearly been the right choice for me. As for me, I have learned complex lessons about trust and forgiveness. I have forgiven Amanda for not seeing what Brian was planning, understanding that love can sometimes blind us to the flaws in those we care about. I am working on forgiving Brian too, not for his sake, but for my own peace of mind. The most important lesson, though, has been about the true meaning of family. It is not just about sharing blood or a last name. It is about showing up when needed. It is about honesty, even when the truth is painful. It is about setting boundaries while keeping your heart open. I keep a photo on my desk now. It shows Amanda, the kids, and me on a ferry to Bainbridge Island, all of us smiling despite the wind whipping our hair. It reminds me daily that sometimes the most terrible betrayals can lead to unexpected healing. In the darkest moments of family crisis, we do not just learn how to forgive, we learn how to love in ways we never imagined possible. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that ultimately led to something positive in your life? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. And remember, sometimes, what feels like an ending is actually the beginning of something far more beautiful than you could have imagined. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength if you are going through your own family struggles right now.